You don't turn your paper upside down like I do, so.
No, but I write for it.
Yeah, I do too.
So it's come on with blank. Dragging your heels, going right.
I turned it upside down and you turn your hand upside down because of the best thing in school.
I do it normal. I'm a lefty too.
You're a lefty too?
Yep. Yep.
My first day on the job, I wrote something a long time ago and turned it in. I briefed through that day and the secretary, first day, I can't read it, I'm like, I'm gonna do it. It's been a long time. I learned to dictate, so.
That's how mine is. Yeah. I keep on going by, so mine looks like cursive printing.
Well, you can read it, you're probably real neat, and you probably got a good grade in that.
I don't think I went to kindergarten.
I didn't either. Well, I did.
Okay. I just let you know.
I had the first couple of
Sorry, you guys want to write for it? No.
And that's not.
I can remember something, I just said, you just need to let it do it the other way.
Something brought in.
Yeah, I can go over, I can do that. Absolutely fine. I can't. I can write left-handed, but I can't write right-handed. I can't throw the ball.
You can, I can throw it on left hand, I can't shoot a pool stick with left hand.
Good afternoon. We're going to go ahead and call to order this library board meeting for August the 12th. I don't believe we have any visitors present. Lori, are you aware of any?
No.
Okay, we'll move on to correspondence. Any correspondence to share? If none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion of consent agenda?
Linda, I have a question. The director's report is part of the consent agenda, right?
Correct.
I did notice there's always great information in there. McCullough received the 5-star Google, Facebook review. Is there anything that comes along with that?
No, it's just recognition that one of our patrons really enjoyed the service that they received at that particular library branch. I know this week we had several others. I believe Oakland and someone else got another 5-star review as well.
Fantastic.
I just want to comment real quick. I do appreciate, I know it goes into great detail, but it does help one really get a sense of what's going on.
And I have a lot of help with that.
I do appreciate that.
I had a question about, and this also is in the director's report, it's just a question. Bendable, can you discuss that just a bit?
Sure. Okay, making sure Heather's in the room here to correct me if I'm wrong. Bendable is a software platform that is a video instruction, and it was being used by local governments, and there's a pilot project going on in South Bend, Indiana, that is using Bendable to work with local governments to bring business people together and show what they have in other social service entities through the library portal using the software program. So it's something that we're looking into along with the task force part of Count 2025.
It's pretty interesting. When I saw that, I did a quick exploration, and it has descriptions of jobs and what would be needed if you were in a particular job, and then it has educational components that you can follow into, what's right, and they actually have like little classes and things all going on.
I was curious, I didn't have time to really review it,
Yeah.
so. thank
We
you.
have some other software products that do kind of the same things, but it's not as social oriented, tying all the other entities together. But we have other things that have those business classes and things like that. Of course, we have a business librarian that's helping with that as well.
All right, any other discussion regarding the consent agenda? If none, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of accepting the consent agenda, signify
consortium, for us to join. Get close, okay. The consortium comes up every year for us to join the State Libraries Consortium, which means we join because we get funding for E-rate. We get an 80% discount on all of our bills. That gives us an 80% discount on our internet connection and our fiber links to each branch. It comes out to approximately $74,000 a year for us to join that, and it lists a few requirements where we budget the money in case we don't get that money, and we agree that we filter, which we do. So I asked the board that we agree to join the consortium.
All right, do we have a motion and a second to commit to join the Indiana State Library Consortium? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion of this?
I think this comes every year. It's a good deal.
Further discussion? If none, all those in favor of accepting the commitment to join the library consortium signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
In the form, please sign on the right side where it says I, Virginia, you have 2 spots.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, under governance, the pandemic event policy revision. Lisa.
I need to remove this so my glasses don't fog up. Sorry about that. So at the May 14th, 2020 Board of Trustees meeting, the board approved the update of the employee Appendix F, the pandemic policy, to apply to the current and future pandemics. There's just a few things that we needed to revise in that. So the updated policy guidelines to the current revisions. So under what is a pandemic, we removed the word illness to add virus to that to make it more. Point C, the EVPL sick policy during a pandemic or alert. So if the library should close to the public, under the 6th paragraph, add to the end of the paragraph, the remote work policy will be used as a guide, but the job categories of remote work may be broadened during the pandemic. The suspension of the remote work policy during the pandemic event is at the discretion of the EVPL administration, which we'll go into that under the next part. Responsibilities at phases 4 and 5, the 3rd bullet we did add at the end of the sentence, and or covered with the appropriate PPE, with the personal protective equipment. And at phase 6, under the bullet point, add and or utilize other provided PPE to the middle of the sentence. And then of course the facilities team added the 4th bullet, maintain the stock of any additional PPE if necessary. The proposal is to request that the board approve the Appendix F pandemic policy revision as part of the employee handbook dated August the 12th, 2021.
All right, do we have a motion and a second to approve this policy? Motion and a second, any discussion? All right, if none, all those in favor of accepting this revision signify by saying aye. Those opposed, same sign. And we move to
She has one more.
He has one more.
Oh, one
Yep,
more,
one more.
I'm sorry.
Mhm. Okay, under the remote work from home policy, so as many organizations have experienced in the last 16 months, remote work can be beneficial in some job categories. Although it works for some job categories, it does not work for all areas of EVPL, such as public service. The following remote work from home policy that was in your packet has been reviewed and approved by our legal counsel, Aaron Bauer. This policy is only for occasional and temporary circumstances and is not to be used to create EVPL staff members' permanent status. Only the listed and approved job categories that were listed on that first page are eligible for remote work due to the nature of their work and expected outputs. An agreement form is to be signed by any employee who will need to work temporarily from home. So temporarily is going to be for 1 week or longer. Supervisors, managers can approve a remote work arrangement that is less than 1 week, provided the EVPL employees meets the guidelines of the policy. Proposal is to request the board to approve the remote work from home policy.
All right, do we have a motion and a second to approve this policy?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, any discussion?
A couple of questions. One, there was a line item in there about focus days.
couldn't hear the first part, I'm
Focus
sorry.
days, it was one of the reasons why you could take or remote work. Tell me, I didn't see anything in there that limited, like, that was one area where I see there could be a potential for abuse. Of somebody saying they need focus days and spending a lot of time away from the office.
So, that, and Scott, you can jump in if you would like, but that's more on areas like, sometimes whenever there's something that is, needs to be hands-on, no interruptions, something to that effect, sometimes it's easier, because I mean, I know like my office, I get a lot of interruptions, and if I'm trying to do a webinar or an all-day conference type situation, sometimes it's better to do that off-site.
Yeah, essentially, what you're asking is the onus is gonna be on our manager and obviously the administrative staff and ultimately me to make sure that essential benefits the right to work from home on a focus day to get specified work done is not abused. And we'll have to be watching and working with the managers to make sure that doesn't happen.
Any further discussion?
So I have a question as far as the roles what was the process to determine these were the appropriate roles for this?
So the, basically we started with exempt and non-exempt situations. There are a few categories, and I'm going to use stewardship and governance. There is a part-time employee a full-time employee that is a non-exempt employee, but that person could still utilize the work at home. So we kind of put it to that area because they're not public service, but they still have some non-exempt. That's kind of the reason why we went to the more of the departments. In technical service, for instance, they're all, there's some non-exempt, but they're all behind the scenes, everything that they can do as they did whenever we were here off for so long, that they were able to do stuff from home.
And my last question, the beginning you stated, I can't remember the exact verbiage, but the length of time.
Mm-hmm. So
I guess, when do you determine when it's being abused?
Okay, so if it's less than 1 week, it's going to be back to the supervisor to make the decision. If it's going to be something that's going to be more than a week, and I'm going to use example, work from home because your child is out of school because of COVID. And I'm going to use Jamie as our HR generalist as an example because she can still work from home and we need her. Because the hiring are still going on and all that, so if she has to be off because her child's home, then that could be a 2-week situation or longer. So it would be a situation that could be 3 to 4 weeks, depending on if it's because she's been exposed or if it's just because the schools have closed to in-school service type situation.
Any other questions?
Just one quick one. I know you said it was approved by legal counsel. Did we pass it by our insurance folks to ensure that, like, liabilities from an insurance, workers' comp issues from work at home are okay?
I'm gonna look at.
I mean, Eric is the one who reviewed it, but I don't know, but I mean, if it's a workers' comp issue, it's gonna have to be within the scope of your employment. And if you're within the course and scope of your employment, then you're covered by workers' comp. You probably should run that by your insurance carrier. I don't think.
Just envision a scenario
The problem
where
is,
we approve somebody to work from home, they trip over the step while they're on a WebEx, interviewing somebody.
I mean, I've had cases when I was a young lawyer where people tripped on the parking lot outside, and the question is whether they were within the scope and the course of their employment. So you can see, you can stretch that, pretty easily. So, yeah, it's probably something you ought to talk to your insurance carrier about.
So, that being the case, right.
Once you make it subject to approval of the insurance.
Table it for until we can get some responses as opposed to having it with them after, is it a rush?
No.
Okay, that's what I wanted to ask, do you need this policy in place with school in session, the example you gave? that
It could be a situation that we could have that come up very soon.
I mean, personally, I'd be a
You're
little
raising a good
nervous.
issue because somebody falls down their stairs in their house, and they're saying that they were working remotely at that particular moment in time, and it was in the course and scope of their employment. So good question.
In the past, those that, it's, in the past, we have had people to work from
Yeah.
home, right?
Yeah,
And so we've already been doing it, this is just.
correct. We've been doing it for basically a year and a half now for sure under COVID since I've been here. And for the majority of the time when people have been home because they've had family members out sick, or they tested COVID positive, and they're close contact, they have to work from home. We've done that, and obviously we've done it under when we had the guidelines to where, under previous executive orders at the national level to where you can do that, as even our front service facing staff, and so we've done that as well. Right now, we're just trying to clean up that language to make sure that happens, and make sure in these rare cases that this happens. I don't see this happening a lot. It's just one of those things we wanted to have clean up on the books to mainly tie into our pandemic policy as well.
I think I'd be comfortable with a couple ways, but there's one way that I think we could go ahead and approve it tonight, just with the caveat that you're gonna pass it by our insurance
Sure.
provider. And then if they have any concerns and you think it needs to be changed, then bring it back.
Bring it back.
Because with those changes, that way we at least get it on the books so that we have a policy in place in case something does come out before the next board.
I know some employers, what they do is they actually have the employee clock in and clock out on that time to know that they're actually part of official time, and they can't just say.
Right.
You got injured, on the job, and they were out running an errand, someplace.
Right. And starting in October, we will, if everything runs smooth, knock wood, with our new HRIS system, we'll be able to do that. Actually, what clock remote, we'll be able to have that functionality.
So, Steve, do we need to vote on the original, and then go back and get an amendment to that?
Right.
Is that correct?
You gotta do the amendment first, vote on the amendment, and then vote on the original.
Oh, okay. So do the amendment first, make a motion for the amendment.
Yes.
Okay.
And then vote on the amendment, and then go back and do the original with the amendment.
That's amended.
That's amendment.
All right, thank you for that clarification. So, do we have an amendment to the original motion of accepting this policy regarding work at home
Under insurance company review.
under insurance company review? Do we have a motion to accept that with the caveat that it would be reviewed through the insurance company?
Yes.
And a second from Sabrina. So now, any discussion on that revision? If none, those in favor of accepting the motion with the amended motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. And then we can go back and.
Vote on the amendment, or the motion
Motion
as
as amended.
amended.
So do we have a motion?
It's already made.
We've already done that, all right. So
All
now,
those in favor
all those
as
in
amended.
favor of approving the motion as amended, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, say sign. All right, that carries. Thank you for helping me figure out the rules on that.
It has been asked if it would be possible for you to speak up. It's a little bit hard to hear when everyone's discussing.
They're streaming.
Yeah.
I'm gonna remove my mask since I'm facing clearly more than 6 feet away from folks then. So we're ready for the, finance report. Lori, reading of the budget.
So this is the first reading of our 2022 budgets, and the information was distributed last week to each of the board members. And I also included it in the packet, as well as handed out some color-coded sheets today, make it a little easier to follow along. I draw your attention to the tan page, and this is just an overview of all 5 budgets that we are reviewing this evening, and that will be a part of our proposed budgets for adoption in the next 2 months. on the left column is our 2021 approved budgets, and then our right column is our 2022 proposed budgets. The maximum levy growth quotient for 2022 was determined by the state at 4.3%. So you can see that our operating fund is underneath that amount at 4.05% increase. Our bond interest and redemption fund is at a negative 11%, and that's due to the fact that the general obligation bond was paid off in 2021. And then our library improvement reserve fund has an increase of 30%, and then our rainy day fund has an increase of 21.43%, and the special fund, which is Willard, their board approved a budget of 4.3% increase. So overall, for all 5 budgets, it's an increase of 2.83%, well under the 4.3% allotted growth.
On the 4.3 allotted percent growth, is that per budget or as a total?
As a total. But we do, to your point, Eric, we do try to keep each of the budgets within that as well, because the library is allotted so much on the levy, the 4.3% on the levy as well. So we don't want to increase it so much that we are way out of, our budget's way more than what we're giving in a levy. The next section that I will draw your attention to, it's the correlation between the white sheet and the pink sheets. And the pink sheet just basically explains what's happening on the white sheet, which is the per line item of the operating budget of the library. And on the first page, you'll see that the category 1 salaries and benefits was increased by $500,000. And the italicized text is the reasons and the rationale behind increasing that. Because we're looking at a potential 6% increase in premiums to both the library and the employee in the coming year, we wanted to try to offset some of that out-of-pocket expense by adding 1.5% to the step plan, compensation plan that's in place. And then also under benefits, you'll see in addition to that 6% increase, the pensions, the taxes, et cetera, are direct correlation to the increase in salaries. Any questions about salaries and benefits? Okay, the next several pages are our supplies, or actually the next page is our supplies. And that actually decreased by $27,000, and that is attributed directly to our building materials, which is our repair materials, because we are seeing that our facilities team is outsourcing more of the work than we used to do in-house, so we're moving that money to another line item. The next several pages then is category 3, which is other services and charges. And we have a little bit of movement on several of the different items, just small incremental amounts. Overall, if you flip back to page 9, you'll see the total for category 3 is an increase of $105,000. And hopefully everybody had a chance to read through each of those to see where we increased or decreased those. I tried to make note of that. One of the main areas is under our digital services, our e-audiobooks, e-books, and streaming resources under other e-resources. Those all continue to see high circulation. And as we see the Delta variant taking effect with COVID, we're likely going to see our numbers pop back up to highs that we had in 2020. So we make sure that we have enough funds in those categories to cover our collection purchases. Any questions on category 3? Okay, and then category 4 is our capital outlay. And the main thing that I wanted to note on it, because it's only an increase of $5,000, we did move some money from non-print materials, which is CDs, DVDs, playaways, etc. We moved some of that money into the library of things. You might have noted we created a new category for circulating a variety of things from baking pans to yard games, board games. We've already purchased ukuleles, the little roll-up piano keyboards. And so we'll be adding more items to that collection in 2022. So we created a new line item so we could see how much we're spending on that. And the other thing I would point out is that we had budgeted for 2 new vehicles for replacements for our pretty old Escape and also Ford Escape and our Dodge minivan. Those are the vehicles that our staff use when we're traveling to various locations due to the fact that they aren't producing a lot of new vehicles right now, and that there's a lot of delays in those. We decided to put off purchasing and replacing those vehicles till next year, when we, one, would need them more frequently, and hopefully travel picks back up, and also because of the availability of purchasing a new vehicle. In its place this year, instead of budgeting for it next year, we are replacing our, it's called a mule, it's a little 4-wheel that helps us clear the snow here in the wintertime at Central, because the special blade that we have to have, a rubber blade we have to have for this particular deck, and then also they utilize it throughout the summertime in going around picking up trash and doing a variety of other cleanup responsibilities of our custodial staff. So overall, as you can see, that's where our 4.03% or $584,000 increase comes from for our operating budget. Any questions? Yes, Richard.
Yeah, on the bond and interest redemption fund.
Yes.
Where did that number come from that we paid off?
So what's listed there, the amounts that we are budgeting for 2022, the $2,949,000, those are the 2011 and 2013 series lease core bonds. And they don't retire until 2023. Which brings me to my next one, and we can go back to operating, if anybody has any other questions about the operating fund. I did want to point out the Library Improvement Reserve Fund and Rainy Day Fund. You'll see some large increases, $150,000 each on those on that tan sheet. And that was due to the fact that while we may lose the ability to levy additional taxes in 2022 for our interest redemption fund, we didn't want to lose the ability to spend what cash we do have on hand. So we increased our LRF and rainy day funds so that we could continue to take on small projects that may come out of the MKM assessment, master building plan assessment, and also increase our technology upgrades and updates out of LRF. Anything, did you have a question?
I do. So 56, 57, and 58, I see line 60 is a new line item.
Yes.
Can you tell me how those are different? Why with 56, 57, and 58, why you would need a 60?
Yes. So 56 is for our existing employees who have conferences that may be close at hand, or they may be online conferences, but they're not like just a one-time podcast or webinar. I know, for instance, I attended the GFOA virtual conference. That was a 2-week conference, but it was virtual this year since we couldn't travel, and so that would be charged to that particular line. And then 57 is when you have a conference and you do travel. So our HR team got to travel up to Indianapolis last week, I think it was, and so for a SHRM conference, so theirs fell under the one with travel. And then 50, where am I at? 58 is just for one-time podcast, live streaming, webinars that might cost like $25, $99, something along those lines. And we have several free ones, so a lot of times we'll utilize the ones that are free before we sign up for those that cost some money. 59 is when we have, when we're recruiting for these open positions that we have. For instance, our Chief Operating Officer, our CEO position, we'll obviously have some people that'll be coming in to interview for that. And so anytime we have interviewing, recruiting expenses, if they come from out of state, we may put them up in a hotel for the night. So those expenses would fall under that category. And then 60, our new one, is for basically for our staff day. So one day a year, usually on Columbus Day, it used to be a holiday, and so we turned it into a staff day. So the library's closed, but all of our staff come together. Sometimes we have speakers, sometimes we have our own staff doing the training, and it's an all-day training session, and we provide lunch for them. And so we have our actual in-house staff development under 60.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, 56 through 58 is maybe individualized, where 60 is a full staff.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mhm. Other questions? I didn't go over Willard's, and I didn't see Greg here this evening, but he'll be at the public hearing next month, so if anybody has any questions, I can pass those along to them.
Thank you, Gloria.
Thank you.
You're actually next on the list?
Yes, no action needed on that one this time. So our appropriations report, if I can find it in my barrage of paperwork here. On the floor, of course. So for the month end of July 31st, 2021, we have an appropriation balance of 55% of the overall budget plus encumbrances from last year. And we're trucking along, we're spending the cash that we have. Of course, you always have the unknown utilities and repairs and so forth. So we're looking at ways where we can make sure that we are expending the cash and our budget at the same time, so we don't have the surplus of cash on hand that might put us into binding review. And then our investments to date for all four funds is $14,963,200. The daily yield for July was 0.0521%, or down 0.0084%. And then our daily yield year to date at the end of July was 0.0655, and it was also down 0.0016%.
So I move for approval of the invoices dated July 7th of 2021 through August the 12th of 21 for $621,387.71, and for payroll July the 2nd of 21 for $233,308.94, July 16th, 21 $232,228.09, and for July 30th of 21 for $388,392.04.
And that, I believe, is in the form of a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the bills for this month signify by saying aye. Same sign to oppose, and that moves forward. Other business, staff spotlight. I'm gonna pass these out. Just take one down and pass it around.
Can you guys hear me with the mask? Okay. My name is Erica Qualls Barnett, and I am the programming manager for EVPL. I have been here a little over 12 years. My current role, I oversee the virtual and in-person programs, and I also direct kind of our large programming initiatives, two of which I'm going to talk to you guys about as you're passing around. I'm going to start with our summer, because that was our big event that just finished. We had a very successful summer. It was, once again, a hybrid because of COVID uncertainties, but we actually went over what our goal of minutes read was. We made the goal of 500,000 minutes, and I think it was in week 7 or 8, we flew past that, so we upped it to 750,000 minutes, and we even passed that up. So you can see on the first page here, it breaks it down of participants and completions and log minutes. We did do books for our littles, so that's why there's a separate line item for logged books. But we read over 774,000 minutes, which is amazing. We had a call-in option that we had 32 people use. Only 11 of those kept calling back though. But we had it as a service for them if they felt more comfortable calling in and not using our bean stack option. And then the next page, we just break down by locations, including our staff. We had great staff participation this year. We had 52 staff members participate, which I believe is the largest since I've been running the summer reading program, and they read almost 100,000 minutes just by themselves. So kudos to our staff members for participating. The next couple pages are about our actual programs that were going on. So the first page was about the summer reading challenge. The next ones are about the programs. And once again, it was kind of weird hybrid because we didn't know what it was gonna look like with COVID. So we had already identified our locations that had great outdoor space and planned most of our programs at those locations. So that's why there's a little bit of a weird imbalance when you look at locations, only because some of our locations had no outdoor space to do programs, whereas like Oakland, East, West, Central had great outdoor space. Also on here is our outreach and off-site programs. I believe Katie Reineke-Pritchett spoke with you guys a couple months ago about the EVPL to You program. It was a major success this summer, and she's going to keep going with that with her team. I went to an event with her on Sunday at Grandin Point Mobile Home Park, and we signed up 21 new people for library cards. So that's just one little sample of what she's been working on. And then the last page are our digital programs that are still going fairly strong. We're going to continue planning on doing some digital programs, even though we've started doing in-person programs starting this last week, I guess. And then the last page is our weekly challenge statistics. I don't know if you guys saw, we had a weekly challenge at all of our locations and digitally, and we had a committee of 3. Nancy's here, and then Audra Dyer and Christina Bushy. They put all of these challenges together. They gave out all the prizes. The response was overwhelming. We had to order more prizes because we were not expecting that much. So we had about 1,200 participants in our weekly challenge. And they prepared this document to share with you to see what they did over the summer. And my last summer note is Lucy Ann Kuhn. She works at EVPL Red Bank. She took the initiative to reach out to the food pantries at USI, U of E, and Ivy Tech. And we did a collection of food for the food students pantry. And we had 6 van loads that we were able to take to those 3 locations. So Lucy Ann did that all on her own. I wish she was here, but I told her I was going to talk about her. So that is our summer. You guys could take this home, read it. If you have any questions, please let me know. The second thing that I shared is our 300 Books by 3rd Grade initiative. This started on August 2nd, sorry, the Monday. And this builds off of the 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten initiative that we started in 2019 that has been very successful. But as many educators know, 3rd grade reading level is very key for continuing education, and we wanted to build something that supported these students beyond kindergarten. And so we just adapted our 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten program to go into 3rd grade. There are suggested reading lists in there. There's a key for parents and grown-ups and guardians who are trying to determine what their child's reading level is. They get a very cool little prize when they reach each level with a button, and I should have brought some buttons to show you guys. They're super adorable. Faith Connell did an excellent job, and Cassidy and Heather of making all of that available. So we haven't been doing it very long, but we've already had, I think, last time I checked, about 25 people sign up for it. So just wanted to share those with you, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Very much, very exciting. I'm particularly excited about the 300 books by 3rd grade. It's really exciting. And that, just under other business, I know Scott has a couple things. I just wanted to, last meeting we talked about virtual meeting attendance and doing an amendment to our bylaws. I know we weren't able to pull that group together, but hopefully we'll have an opportunity
real quick. I just, again, would like to commend the staff on the successful summer reading celebration that we had here at EVPL. Everybody did a fantastic job from back of house and PR, creating all the materials, all the work that went into creating the ideas, the front service staff marketing it, word of mouth to patrons. It just was a great program this year in a real difficult time of trying to do it as a hybrid virtual / in person, not knowing how much in person we could have, and they adapted and overcame and had a really successful program, so I just wanted to commend them. The other thing I wanted to let you know, Dr. Stubbs and I spoke right before this meeting, and I'm sure all of you are aware that the county health department's issued a required mask mandate. We've sent our signs out to go on all of our EVPL facilities that masks are now required to support that mandate by the county health department, as well as county government and city government as well.
Anything else to come before the board?
I just wanted to remind everyone that next month on September the 9th is the public hearing of the budgets, and so it's imperative that we have a quorum for that particular meeting. And then the following month on October 14th will be the adoption, and we'll also need to make sure we have a quorum for that. Otherwise, we get stuck with the 2021 budget.
For you to attend, but our attendance actually is pretty good. Anything else?
The one thing, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Lori and Steve, if I remember right, at public hearings under the new open meetings law, virtual attendance is not allowed under public hearings, correct? Am I remembering that correctly?
Just the adoption of the actual
Just the
budget.
final adoption, okay, I just wanted to make sure, okay.
Yeah. But that's only when you're not under an emergency, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not just the executive order, it's an emergency declaration, and it's right. The recent emergency declaration, I can't recall when it
It's
expired.
through August 31st, checked it before we came into
Okay, so it would not be at our next meeting, right?
But the part about the virtual meetings has expired. It expired at the end of April.
Yes.
And that's why we need to make sure our bylaws are updated to reflect the new law, HEA 1437.
Well, I know that group's meeting, and we'll look at that. I still
Correct.
think that it could, that reading it, it just only comes into play when there's not a declaration, but I understand what you're saying.
We have to have 30 days notice too, in order to change the bylaws.
If Sabrina and Richard will let me know your availability in the next couple of weeks. I know Rick said since school starting time in the afternoon is good for him. We can get something set up and I'll get in touch with Steve.
Any other business